And welcome to this special programme to mark World Mental Health Day 2023. My name is Mick Coyle, and I've been having weekly conversations about mental health under the Mental Health Monday banner since 2017. More than 300 episodes into the many conversations we've had on issues like eating disorders, stress and anxiety. One of the issues that comes around time and time again is the issue of suicide. And it's interesting that in the government's new suicide prevention strategy, they admit that while suicide numbers have fallen over the last 20 years or so, that fall has stalled since 2018. There's something we've got to do about it. 6,000 lives across the UK lost to suicide each and every year. And every one of those people, a friend, colleague, a brother, a sister, a son, or a daughter. And for this year's World Mental Health Day, I wanted to bring those conversations to the fore, particularly from the point of view of parents who've lost a child. Parents who've lost a child of many different ages, to share their stories, to hear about the impact of losing a child and the reasons why we as a society need to do so much more to tackle the high numbers of suicide that we see each and every year. As part of this programme, we're going to be hearing those parents' stories, those heartbreaking stories about the moment they realised their son or daughter had taken their own lives, the impact that it had on their lives, and the work they're now trying to do to inspire others to get support, to ask for help, or to console those who've been impacted by this terrible, terrible tragedy. Each one of those parents who've shared their story with me shows incredible bravery to get to this point, to be able to put into words their experience and also to find that way forward. And there are many different examples of the work that's going on now, sometimes under the name of their children, sometimes under different charities or organisations, but so many of them so very inspiring. Now we're going to share these stories under the name Leave a Light On. Leave a light on is something which, if you're a parent, you will know you leave a light on for a child who's afraid of the dark. You'll leave a light on when your children have gone out, when they're a little bit older and you don't want them to come in and trip over their shoes. But we can also leave a light on for hope. We can leave a light on for a conversation. We can leave a light on for a friend or a colleague who's going through a difficult period. I hope that by sharing these stories under this banner, people will feel inspired to think, yes, there's something I can do in this situation. And even if someone I know is going through something which is really, really dark, I can leave a light on for them. Each of the parents that I've spoken to as part of the project are incredibly inspiring. So, for Leave a Light On, let's reflect now on the impact of losing someone to suicide, particularly when that someone is your son or your daughter.
It was 2 weeks after her 16th birthday that it happened.
I remember it very vividly at 4:22, just as I was sitting back in the car, and an incoming call from John's girlfriend to tell me she'd got to my son's house and found he'd taken his own life.
It was the worst day of my life. 2 police officers came to our door and they said, "Well, sir, you better sit down. We have some terrible news for you. Cameron is dead and it appears that he has taken his life."
You know, it was too late to realise that I should have known. Why did I not know? Did nobody know?
It shattered us into pieces.
He decided clearly that this world was a place he didn't want to be in, and so Cameron died by suicide.
I was lost. It felt like I'd stepped into this emotional, deep black hole, like a lifetime emotional prison sentence.
From that moment, kind of the world changed dramatically.
It feels as if your very heart has been ripped out of you. It's like nothing else that anyone could ever experience.
It entailed me never wanting to talk about it to anybody, and 3 times contemplating to end my life.
I missed my boy so much. I made a decision there that I was going to end my life, and I made an attempt on my life.
You do come away with guilt because, as a dad, your job's to protect your kids. Okay, he's 34 years old and arguably not a child, but equally, yet you do feel that.
My son, when he died, he wrote a letter, a 12-page letter addressing the family, each one of us in turn. And he said, "Please fight for mental health. The support is just not there."
If we went for a beer, I didn't want to be the dad that was continually interrogating him about his mental health. So we wouldn't have those conversations.
I realised too late that, it is the biggest killer of our young people in this country. All that life, all that hope, and all that potential that we're losing.
The more we talk about this from a place of love, the more it's going to help people on a really deep level.
And if we do that, we can create, a fantastic movement that has a real measurable impact on saving lives and preventing suicide.
Something really meaningful has to come out of this.
It causes you to run into your silent place and not to talk about it. And now I want to discourage that silence and that isolation and bring people together.
Because without hope, there's no point even tackling the subject and talking about it. There has to be some kind of hope.
So if there are people who are listening to this for whom suicide is still a place of isolation and brokenness, please reach out. It's so important to do that.
And if you're one of those people in that dark place, please believe, please stay, even if it's just one more day, because there are people out there who care. You deserve your place on this planet like everybody else, and there are people who are compassionate who want to help you.
And I hope you agree with me that that's an incredibly powerful insight into what those parents have been through. Thanks to Steve Phillip, to John Gibson, to Mike McCarthy, to Jenetta Barry for sharing their stories, and we'll share more stories as part of Leave a Light On. I think it's so important to hear what those parents have been through, and I know any kind of suicide is a tragedy, but to lose a child and to go through that, as we've heard there, truly, truly devastating. But so much is coming from this, and over on the website you'll be able to see the links to all the different organisations which have been set up by those individuals, by those mums and dads, to try and do something about it. Truly, truly inspiring people, and hopefully they can play a key part in the way forward for those who are looking to find a way through a suicide bereavement, but are also looking for help, looking for inspiration, looking for someone who's leaving a light on for them.
Last year, more than 750 lives were lost to suicide across Scotland. This week, we're opening up the conversation about mental health by hearing from parents whose children have taken their own lives.
Waved from the car, and that was the last time. And you never dream it'll be the last time.
That's Deanna speaking about the final time she saw daughter Jo alive. Deanna then found Jo after she had made the decision to end her own life, aged 36.
I can't remember a lot about it, apart from screaming.
Deanna tells us about the heartbreak which followed just after losing her child.
I wanted to swap places with her, give her life back, or I wanted to go and be with her. I mean, I didn't seriously think about doing anything. The thoughts were there.
Deanna hopes by opening up, more people will speak out and get the help they need, and to leave a light on for hope.
To talk to whoever you need to talk to. Talking is the best thing.
Head to the website for more on our Leave a Light On campaign.
Now, for our next part of the programme, we're going to be hearing directly from somebody who's lost a child to suicide. Richard Bland is his name. I'm just about to speak to him about losing his son. As we've heard, it can be a truly devastating thing to go through. But at the same time, a hope or a dream or an aspiration that something good can come from those dark times. And Richard's done some fantastic work with his BearForce charity. Now, what the BearForce charity is about widening the conversation beyond suicide to mental health, giving people an ability at a young age to talk about their feelings, to talk about their worries, and to do so through the adventures of a little teddy bear, a school book that children can read and use it as an opportunity to talk about their feelings. It's a wonderful idea. It comes from such a difficult place, but hopefully that will be a huge inspiration for the future. And Richard has been so kind and open to invite me to a conversation where he's willing to share his experience, his journey, and hopefully what the BearForce charity can achieve.
Our son Andrew died 10 years ago from suicide. The shock and the horror of that, and the shock and the horror of getting a knock at the door by the police to tell your son has just killed himself was unbelievable. Andrew was married at the time. He was 31. Married with a young son. Unfortunately, their marriage was breaking up, and he was due to come back home to live with us for a while. On the Saturday morning, but Friday night, he took his own life. I can't say you get over it. You do not get over it. Time is a good healer, but it doesn't heal the pain and the loss from losing somebody from suicide. I'd always done charity work. I've done a lot of charity work in the past, and we'd had a teddy bear, if you like, flying around with the RAF for 3 years prior to this, with a view to raising money for charity, auctioning him off. Everywhere the teddy bear had been, we'd got legitimate photographs. We've got accurate recorded entries in a logbook. But then following Drew's death, the biggest problem we had was, as a family, was finding somebody to talk to and finding somebody outside the family circle, if you like, that would understand how you felt, understand what you were going through, and try to understand what you were going to experience in the coming weeks and months following a death like that. There's nobody around. Unless you've experienced what we've gone through, I don't think anybody has the right to sit and tell you how you're going to feel and what you're going to feel like in the coming months. And then we found a lovely little charity in Stoke-on-Trent called the Dove Service. We spent an awful lot of time going to them. We spent a lot of time talking with them. They talked with us. And I turned around and said, well, we hadn't got money to donate towards you, but I got this teddy bear that's been doing the rounds. I'd gladly donate it to you for your help in getting us through the difficult time. And we talked for months and months and months. And eventually somebody said to me, oh, it's a bit more than a teddy bear here. There's an adventure. There's a children's storybook. It took an awful lot of time to get it published. All that time, it was as though I was doing something positive. And we were getting some positive feelings through trying to help other people. And I knew this would be the start of something that would help other people to deal with what we've gone through. 10 years have gone past now. Been a hard 10 years. And I have to say that the project that we're on now with the BearForce and that, I have to say it saved my life, because I just, and still cannot accept, what Drewy did. I didn't go to the inquest. My wife went to the inquest. That was horrendous. That was shocking to be told, the nitty-gritty of what had gone on. But then we were told down the line that his son saw him, and I can't accept that. I can't accept it. I can't imagine what he's gone through. He was only 5 or 6 at the time. So just cannot imagine what Andrew's son has gone through for the past 10 years. So many people are like me, like Sue, like the family, experiencing what we're going through, and it's hell.
When you were looking for that support group and you were sort of being offered these sort of numbers, did you know what that emotion was that you wanted to either talk about? Was there something particular, or was it just put me somewhere where I can be and just have these emotions and feel safe about it?
I think at the time I was looking for somebody or somewhere to deal with my anger. My anger at the time was on a different level, more so because of the way it all happened, the way it all panned out. We'd learned afterwards that he'd attempted suicide once before, but we were not told about it. Had we been told about it, my God, we'd have done something about it. I can't say whether he'd still be here now, but we'd have had a good go at saving him. Anger. I needed to understand that anger, where it was coming from. And it was never angry towards Drewy. The rest of the family, it was pure emotion. We needed just to be able to talk about it and talk about it and talk about it. And that's what you got to do, because you cannot accept, in a way, why your son or other people's sons and daughters, why they've done what they've done. It's shocking.
The many people I've spoken to who've had experiences, I won't say similar experiences, but I think every experience ends up being, different. Talk about the sense of grief and almost not being able to put into words what that grief feels like, because it's a grief which is so unexpected, in that we expect to grow in life and lose grandparents and eventually lose parents, but there seems to be this reversal there of losing a child. That we're not trained for it emotionally. It's not an anticipated experience. So when it becomes a reality, Richard, that must be incredibly, incredibly difficult just to process what you've gone through.
Yeah, I don't think we still accept it. I certainly don't understand it. It took months and months before we actually slept in our bed. And you talking about keeping the light on. We've got a small light in the hallway, and that is on every single night without fail, with Drew's picture there in case he wants to come home. It's an emotion that you can't explain, you can't understand. Terrible.
In terms of taking something from that experience, it was interesting that you had this idea that this thing you'd been working on, the teddy bear, the sort of the innocence of the teddy bear, even though you were coming from this place where you had all these sort of the dark experience, if you like, but then to see something which is as innocent as a teddy bear and think that can become the symbol of what the future of this emotion might be, or this might be the light that takes us away from this place, or takes us from this place to somewhere where we could be more positive. Strikes me as something which is almost too perfect. A teddy bear is literally the cutest thing. It's the thing that we give to all children, and we keep them in our lives at all times. They're our go-to, aren't they, for a cuddle when we need them. Even as an adult, when you leave home, Teddy's like, sometimes gets shoved in the bottom a little bit, but he's always there in the box and ends up back on the shelf. And the teddy bear becomes that emotional crutch, almost, if you like.
Definitely. Sue, the wife, she's dealt with this in her own way. She lives for work. She lives for the grandkids now. But she changed her attitude since the bear has taken on this new course. We've had a bear designed for British Airways and Kids Out, and it took 6 months before Sue would accept the design of the bear, because she wanted it to be Drew's features, his smile, his eyes, and that's, her involvement now is she's proud of where we've got to and where we're going to, because Drew's living on in the project. And if you give a bear to a young child, like you say, they'll talk about what is the meaning of the bear, what is the meaning of the book, what are we trying to achieve with what we do? And all I've said all along, if we can help one family or prevent one family from going through what we're going through, we've won. That's it, we've won.
Tell me, Richard, for our listeners, explain how the sort of you make that connection there. So, and we're going to put the links up to the bear on our social media pages, because people can see the places that he's gone to, the famous sites that he's seen, the photos of the bear at 40,000 feet, in sort of incredible sort of judges, living the life of, and again, we talk about the innocence of it, that a child believes that their own teddy bear does, that when they go to school or when the teddy goes off and lives a life and has these adventures. Then there's also the book, and there's the narrative that comes around the bear. So just tell us how you then make that connection between here's the bear, they're on this journey, but then there's a bigger story in play.
Well, if you think about where he's been, the places he's been, the people he's been with, everywhere he goes, people ask the question, what's it all about? Why are you doing this? And then you explain to them what they do. They then take ownership of the bear, and they treat the bear as if it's one of their parts of their family. So what we're trying to do is get people to talk about their emotions and the feelings and get children talking. Thousands of miles away, people are talking about what we're trying to do and what we're doing. And the comments that come back are just phenomenal. You know, he's been to Kilimanjaro. He's been to Afghanistan. He's flown with the Red Arrows. He's flown over Buckingham Palace. He's actually he was taken to Windsor Castle for the Queen's funeral. Now, the person that took him there sent me the photographs and wrote a little paragraph in his logbook about that's history. But we're sharing that. So then you take that adventure and expand it with what we're trying to do in the future. There's 100 books we could write. There's 100 adventures that he's been on. And he's experienced so many different things that young kids, young children, boys, girls, they can get involved in what he's doing. They can then take their teddy bear away and have their adventures with the teddy bear and tell us how they feel about what they're doing, what they're experiencing.
It gives them permission, doesn't it? You're not just going to say, right, children, tell me about how you feel today. You can say, here's a story about a bear. Imagine what your bear would do. What adventures would you go on? And it almost gives a child permission to think, right, well, where's my head at the moment? Right, well, what adventure would I go on? It might be a happy, joyous adventure, but it also, from that story, might offer a little bit of an insight into maybe a negative experience that child is experiencing. But you've given them permission to go through that creative process.
But also, if you give the child that opportunity to talk about how they feel, mum and dad then listen and look and watch or read how the kids feel. Children don't talk to mum and dad because children nowadays are too busy on the telly, on the phone, on the iPad. But if you give them the opportunity to express how they feel with a little cuddly teddy bear, oh, yeah, I had a bad day today. And mum and dad, why? They've never spoke about it before. Now they can.
It's such an important lesson to learn, isn't it? Because, of course, we started the conversation by talking about suicide, which is, is this heightened state which can build up over a period of time. There's some sort of, in some cases, spontaneity to it. But it's sort of like almost an end-of-the-line decision. What you're talking about goes right back to the source, doesn't it? It's about education. It's about knowledge. It's about awareness. Equipping the child with that ability to have that conversation, presumably so that they don't need to get to that extreme state because they've learned that they can have that conversation. They almost learn the language of how to talk about your feelings.
Yeah, exactly. We've seen, we've heard, we've had messages about so many adults, young adults, committing suicide in the past few years since we've been doing what we're doing. But then there are children doing it. There are children self-harming. Not long after Druid died, I went to give personal experience talk of what had gone on to a group of senior RAF officers at RAF Cranwell on suicide awareness. And some of the guys there are really senior air crew, if you like, and they accepted that if you look at self-harming, it can start with the simplest thing: drink, smoking. It can start that simply, and young children are doing that now. But then they're progressing to suicide. But if there is an intervention there that somehow gets mum and dad to hear or to understand in the first place how they feel, they can do something about it. If they don't know what's going on in the minds, how can they address and help them going forward?
Now, I think that's a huge part, and actually the fact that people have to have such an experience to then become part of the solution tells you that maybe as a society, I think we probably know this is the case, we haven't equipped ourselves to have this. The fact that people like yourself, Richard, have had to create these resources yourself, because when you've looked around to go, right, well, what is there? People kind of shrug their shoulders and kind of go, there's nothing of what you're looking for. So I'm certain that, particularly with the image of BearForce, the story that comes with it, and the plans you've got with it as well, Richard, that will continue to thrive as an idea, and people will associate then the two, that a teddy bear is about expressing emotions.
Yeah,
and again gives people permission. And those children who've learned anything about BearForce in the last 10 years, they'll move into their teens, they'll move into their 20s, they'll move into their 30s, they'll have children of their own.
Yeah, it's a legacy as well. Like you say, you can hand your teddy bear over through the family, and all the time it's been passed down, there's a reason for it to be passed down. You're getting this, so you know that you can talk to somebody about your problems. There's an awful lot of superb charities out there now who will deal with suicide, threats of suicide. We want to strip all that back and get to the children before they get to that state. And if we can, then we will.
Well, Richard, we wish you all the best with the BearForce project. Looking forward to see how it continues to develop as well. I know you've got all sorts of projects in the pipeline as well, and your connections within the aviation industry are going to raise some incredible opportunities for you as well. So I look forward to hearing some more about those in the future too. But thank you so much for sharing your story with us, and thanks for speaking to us.
Thank you, Mick. Thank you. Cheers.
Richard Bland's story there. Thank you to Richard for being so open and honest with me, and to being a part of the Leave a Light On project. So interesting to hear there, the idea of the light that he leaves on for his son in the hope that one day he'd come home was heartbreaking, and maybe gives an insight into why Leave a Light On hopefully works as an idea and can be a real call to action for people listening to stories like Richard's and to do something about it. We wish him, of course, all the best with his BearForce project as well. He's got some brilliant plans for that too, not least to be heading into schools and speaking to young people, children, and giving them the opportunity and the skills to talk about their mental health and how they're feeling. Over on the website, by the way, there are links to all the people that we've heard from on the programme today, the work that they're doing, and also signposting services to mental health charities, suicide prevention helplines that you can speak to if you want to speak to somebody about your own issues or you know somebody who is struggling. On social media, you'll also see some images where people are actually literally leaving a light on. Images of buildings lit up, of lights, of lamps, of candles that people are lighting or setting up to symbolise what Leave a Light On is all about. A light in the darkness, a chance of hope, a spark of opportunity to have a conversation that could save a life. I'll share some of those images on our social media feeds, and if you are able to take one yourself and share it, absolutely, please use the hashtag Leave a Light On. And let's continue this conversation. Let's share those stories. Let's hear from these people. Let's really listen to what they've got to say. And when they call for action, when they call for help, when they call for support, let's leave a light on for them too. As ever, if you are looking for support and help with your mental health, you can go to the Hub of Hope, hubofhope.co.uk. The Samaritan's number is 116 123. You can also text SHOUT to 85258. Over on the website, on the Leave a Light On pages, you'll see a range of helplines and hope lines as well, which are available too. Thank you to everybody who's supporting Leave a Light On in 2023. To my colleague Liam Ross for the work that he's done on the project too. And you can subscribe to the Mental Health Monday podcast where you get your podcasts.